Does everyone need a quick stretch? 10-second stretch? No, everyone's saying power through. Stand up if you want. You've been sitting for a while, and we're the last ones before lunch. So I'm Rachel Polish. I joined Quantcast actually fairly recently. I have a digital marketing background myself, and decided that I really missed having consultative relationships with clients like all of you. And so I joined recently, and my colleague Ryan Richardson, who just asked a great question, is here joining me today. So come up and say hi. We would love to meet you. We are a programmatic DSP, but what makes us really unique is the way we can give our clients a first mover advantage with early behavioral signals. And so as strong as we are in cookieless and other areas, we really are built on a measurement platform that is informed by AI and machine learning. So that makes us really unique. And sometimes we even see that some of our clients reach their target audiences 30 days before other companies out there. So we'd love to talk to you more about that afterward there, and we're here for lunch as well. I'd love to also introduce my good friend, Amisha Gandhi. I've known her for about 15 years. We ended up talking yesterday and reconnecting, and ended up being like 2 hours, so we won't keep you all here that long. But would you introduce yourself, Amisha, and share a little bit more about your career and your background?
Sure. It's great to see you again. So I was really delighted when Rachel's name popped up in my inbox. I haven't spoken to her for a couple of years, and we've known each other forever and seen each other through many various changes in our career over time. I'm Amisha. I'm the SVP of Marketing at Tipalti. Tipalti is a finance technology company in the SaaS space. We have been around for over 10 years. I joined last year in January, so I've been there about for a year and a half. And before that, I was at SAP for a long time and did a variety of roles in marketing and communications. And prior to that, I've worked at agencies and at companies like Google, HP, Time Warner. So I've done many different jobs in marketing, including comms, demand gen, product, and at Tipalti, I run the core marketing team. And Tipalti brings finance operations, so it's accounts payables, global payments, so that's creator economy, how do networks pay people, and then PO management. And we work with mostly upper mid-market and mid-sized companies that are high velocity and growing, companies like Noom and Twitter and Twitch, companies where we started with them when they were much smaller, and we scale with them. We make finance easy to use and easy for every department to pay all their vendors. So that, to speaking to a marketing audience, imagine if you could have a credit card that you give to all your marketing folks and they could spend, and then your budget would be much more in your control. So that's something I could bring to you about Tipalti, because mostly we target the finance audience. So having joined for the last year and a half, we've scaled a lot. We talked a lot about that yesterday. When I joined, we had 18 people on the marketing team. We are now 60. So when I joined, they said, we'll be doubling the marketing team the next year, and said we tripled it because we're also high growing ourselves. So how do you scale that? So we'll talk a little bit about that. But I'm going to look to Rachel for where we should dive in first.
Well, that's just it. And we're going to have some fun. So please jump in if you have questions along the way too. I know people are anxious to have lunch as well. So I do want to hear about the fact that you're at 60 people and how you've thought about scaling so quickly, and the marketing mix involved in that restructure.
Sure. So when you take on a team and you know where you're going to grow, you have to think about the business objective. Where is the business going? What are the things and functions we need to get there? And also think about things, not just what you need this year, but how you're going to build out for the next 2 to 3, even 5 years. So when I first joined, I got to know the company, and I came up with a plan for here's how we could grow marketing in the next 3 to 4 to 5 years. And then what does that org look like? What are the tools that we need? We can't build everything overnight, right? It's done in a step ladder process. You have to think about your org that way also. So looking at the team, we had demand gen, brand, content, web, and beginning of creative in-house, and then product marketing, which we turn into portfolio marketing by building out customer marketing, because we started having a lot more customers and a need there. So you really need to think about how you build journeys with your customer. So having customer marketing built out more outside of just references is really important, as you all know. So that's somewhere where we felt like we needed to grow. We had only 2 product marketing managers. So, and our product team had grown and it was scaling. So we had to think about the build out there and how that can support sales enablement. We are a revenue driven marketing organization, right? So thinking about how you build out demand and field marketing. As your teams and sales are growing, think about the field and how they're growing. So you have to think about that kind of build, whether it's by territory or by vertical. And so those are things that have to be thought out and talked to within the teams, and also in collaboration with your stakeholders like sales, product, and customer success. So don't forget your partners and talking about where they're growing and they're scaling, where their gaps are, because oftentimes when you're moving so fast and growing, sometimes gaps in other teams can come onto your team too. So you need to know where their gaps are so you can help fill in not their gaps, but how are you going to manage that with your team? So that's some of the things that you have to think about when you look at your org. And then we did not have communications built out as its own pillar. And so looking at the company and where we're going, building out a communications pillar, building out social media, building out also customer marketing from the demand side. And then because a lot of our customers pay out to vendors, coming up and thinking about supplier marketing, right? So how are we speaking to that whole market? And it's a whole channel that we haven't even delved into. So how do you build that out? So bringing in and thinking, we start this year with that and we build it out, right? So what are the seeds and functions that you don't have, that you need to have, and by when? And then you kind of plant the seeds towards that. And you do the same thing with tools. Do an audit. Do a once a year audit on the tools. You may not need to change anything, but it's always good to ask. And then I didn't come up with this on my own. Get the feedback from your team where they think the gaps are, because they're living it day to day and you're not. I only hear certain things. I don't hear everything. I can't know every little nut and bolt, but your team leaders do. So ask them. It's really important you do that, because you're making things on assumptions that you've made on what you see, and it might be different than what your leaders see.
That's awesome. Thank you. I always learn something new from Amisha, and I always feel energized after every conversation with you. So thank you for that. I am really curious about something you mentioned to me yesterday. Tell me how you think about the customer and how early you find them in your journey.
So I started a startup a long time ago, but when you think about your customer, people think about someone becoming, you say it's a prospect, it becomes a customer when they sign the contract. For me, someone is your customer from the minute they hear about you. As soon as everybody heard about Tipalti, a lot of people in this room went to Tipalti.com, right? So from the minute they touch you, they're your customer. And that's how you should think about it.
I love that. How is your marketing mix and tech stack evolving? And one thing you mentioned to me yesterday that I loved is how you're thinking about A/B testing in that way.
So when I came into Tipalti, there's a new team. There's a lot of tools. I came from SAP, so they tried to make you have to use everything internal. It's very different. Things are more streamlined. This was, teams, and you're building a company. So you're going very fast. You're going to bring in tools quicker. So over time, you have an accumulation of a lot of tools. I mean, if anyone's using less than one tool or one or two tools in here, I'd be very surprised. But there are so many marketing technology tools we can use. What is the right mix? So I like to do a tools audit every year to say what is helping us, what's not helping us, have we outgrown anything? So those are things that you really need to think about, is the tool set that you have. And then a big part is A/B testing. So, does our header, on your website, are people scrolling past the first, how much time are they spending? Where are they actually clicking? Something we found that was surprising, we did a whole website refresh, and that lifted our brand, but it also lifted traffic, and people were spending more time on our site. But people were clicking on our customer logos. That was a learning that we didn't have before. We thought we'd put a scroll in. People were clicking, expecting to go somewhere. And when they didn't, they would drop off. A lot of those folks we found, like 75% were dropping off. So we did some A/B testing and said, if we click and we take them to a full customer reviews page or, a testimonial page, what happens if with a form? And then do we click on it and they go to a case study with a form? And so we start A/B testing, and the one where we took them to a full customer review page and had a form that was in the middle of the page did better than just the specific case study by 17% lift in leads. So using things like that and working with, if you don't have a CR person in-house, we just hired somebody recently to do that, hire an agency to do that. So you don't have to have all the build in-house. You can bring in freelancers or agency or tools. So think about that. And then when you put your stack together, it's not just the tools, it's the tools, processes, the people, and agencies. And that's your real mix in marketing. If you look at them separately, I think it's a mistake. You have to look at them together because they are all connected.
That's great. Thanks. So you mentioned a goal that you saw that you had brand lift over and lead gen 17% up by certain insights, based on certain insights. How are you evaluating success, and what does your measurement model look like?
It's a really great question because it's constantly evolving. I think, like everybody else, we're in the middle of QBR season, right? So all of our heads are full of like numbers and lots of questions. So when you look at measuring success, it always, everyone says, oh, it comes down to leads. I think it does and it doesn't. I think leads are a good indicator of where you are, but I really think we need to, as marketers, look at the number of qualified opportunities that we're delivering to our SDRs or BDRs, and what is the bookings number. So you may bring in less leads, but you're bringing in more opportunities, and you're therefore getting to better bookings. So I look at ops and bookings as a true measurement of whether we're successful or not. I carry a number that's pretty high. For SaaS, last year we drove 52% of net new revenue. And so that's a lot, right? And we exceeded our goals, but the only way to do that is to really look at not just top funnel, but mid funnel and all the way through. And as we move up market, things like ABM, we use Sixth Sense, which has been really good. We can tell what things are happening, where our SDRs are touching things where they're not. And if someone is sitting there for too long, if they were even a low intent lead or whatever it is, they're going to walk away from you. And if they come in on a low intent lead source, but they actually have high intent behavior, you lose them because somebody else is talking to them because they picked up the phone faster than your team was able to do. So don't look at the volume. The volume can sometimes be really overwhelming for your BDRs once you pass something that you think qualifies. So make it easy for them. Tier out your leads. We did a whole lead tiering project. These are the ones that show high intent behavior. What happens with a lot of BDRs and SDRs is they look at, this is, PPC, right? Paid search is a very high intent behavior lead. So of course you should immediately act on that, and BDRs, SDRs know that. But sometimes something comes in from content syndication or a webinar, and they then click on something else that denotes they want a demo. They are now a high intent behavior lead. So you need to really work with your sales teams to think about what is the behavior someone is exhibiting and then qualify them. And that's how you're going to get more opportunities and more bookings.
That's great. You talked about different parts of the funnel. How are you looking at your verticals that you need to reach in at what parts of the funnel? How did you evaluate that funnel and where people sit in that funnel?
That is always something that we're working on. So some of the things that we did and some of the things that we are doing is we took a look at using, Sixth Sense and a variety of other tools in Salesforce and looking at where people come in, what do they click on, and then try to get to a multi-state attribution model, not just here's a lead source, and now they're in a BDR, and now they're qualified op. What are the things that we actually sent to them? Which ones were great at getting engagement? Which ones were not? How did somebody go dark? How often do they go dark? Is there anything we can do to bring them back? We found last year, I don't know what happened. There was something about macaroons. Everybody loves macaroons. We found 12.7% or something. I have a lot of numbers in my head right now because I went to a QBR. 12.7% of people clicked to get macaroons, and it brought back 6% of those folks back into the funnel, in the middle of the funnel again. So I don't know, something about macaroons.
Yum.
So take note of macaroons. That's something that we discovered, right? So when you do that, you're able to join in and create a more connected prospect journey. And then what the other piece you need to do is really look across to sales. What are they sending out? Sometimes they get a lot of outreach sequences, and if you go through that prospect journey yourself, I invite you to do that. Every once in a while, go in and say, I'm a new prospect. I click on this. This is what's happening to me. And then I get something from our sales team and I'm like, did I just walk into the twilight zone? Like, what just happened to this beautiful experience I was having, right? Or sometimes it's a marketing side, it's you're getting bombarded by now I gave my name to Tipalti and now 15 million people are reaching out to me, delete, right? So you need to know what that journey is and then start mapping it out, right? If that means taking a step back and recalibrating while you're still in flight, that's okay, do that. But make sure when you throw things over, it's not just, you brush it off. You really want to make sure that they're having that experience, because remember, once they sign, you want to do customer marketing. So you have to be really connected, not just in marketing, but with sales at the hip to make sure that those connection points are happening and that your prospect and customer are getting the right experience and they're getting information that's inspiring and inspirational, but also engaging. And it's something that your audience wants to hear and get value from.
That's great. So you're a financial services company, or in that space, of course, but a lot of companies have already moved to cookieless inventory. And given the privacy concerns, especially in Europe and other areas like here in California, many of our clients have come to us for cookieless support. Tell us how you're thinking about cookieless inventory and how you're reaching with, I think it's half of the internet audience is cookieless today. And if you're not there, you're missing a critical opportunity. How are you looking at that?
So I'm sad because we can't stalk people as well as we have been able to do now. But it's also, you have to, we just talked a little bit about the journey, behavior, right? So if you're targeting a specific audience, make sure you're bringing them something of value, even if they're not going to ever buy your tool or your software or your service or whatever it is, right? It's, there's a lot of folks in B2C, right? Or click and buy whatever product it is right away. Is who is telling that story for you? So bring in third-party experts, get enough information so that somebody will come to you and get some value, and they'll either learn something, be inspired, or want to give you their engagement, because that's where we're going to go. We're not going to be able to target the way we've been able to do. So we really need to think about when we do things like paid search, when we do things like paid media, how do we then retarget? We won't be able to do it in the same way. So you need to make your offer or whatever it is you're doing engaging enough so that they want to keep coming back to engage with you, and they're coming back to the well for something, whether it's knowledge or being exposed to something that makes them better in their career. If the best thing is some of our customers have said, and they've left the company they're at, gone to new companies, and brought us along for the ride. And when I speak to them, they said it's because you made my career better. You made me shine in what I did in my company, and that is so valuable. And if you're able to do that, that speaks volumes, right? So creating that kind of value starts from the first time they come to your site, or whether they talk to you or a sales rep, right? So you want to create that engagement, and that's something you need to look at. You also need to look at first-party data. Where are you getting your data from? Make sure you're able to capture your own data. It's very painful. It's a lot. So make sure you not only capture it, but you have somebody on your team. And if you don't have someone on your team, hire a freelance analyst to look at the data and make it in a readable format back to your teams so they know what to do with that data and how to target customers better. But those are some of the things that we need to start thinking about now and planning for. So if you're not planning for it, start planning now, because the worst thing we can do is there's another update or something happens and it's gone, and then you're scrambling, right? So the more that you can plan ahead, it's coming. If you're get together with someone with Google or someone who is an expert in this, ask them for advice. It doesn't hurt for a couple of hours of consulting to get a plan in place now versus waiting for it to happen, and then you're scrambling, and then your CEO or your execs and sales, everybody's looking at marketing like, what happened? You guys everybody knew this was coming, and you weren't ready. So you don't want to be caught off guard. So you want to think about planning, and maybe it doesn't go exactly to plan, and there is some fumbles, but at least you're prepared for it. and your team is, right?
Yeah, Ryan and I are talking to a lot of our clients about cookieless. Very quickly, they're realizing that they need to make a change, so it makes sense. So one thing you said to me yesterday that I loved is that you mentioned that you want to do what works, but also try something new and test something new. How do you identify what's working and then what's new on what's next for you?
So as much as I talk about data, I really, love storytelling, and, I'm marketing. I love all the shiny things, interactive, videos and all, and then that, right? So always take a look at our marketing mix. What is working? What campaign work? What email? We're always doing that. But it's also really important to stay abreast of what other people are doing, your competitors. I spent a lot of time on our competitors' sites and other places and their journeys just as much as I do on our own. It's really important because sometimes they're doing really neat things that are working or not, and you can figure that out from data. You can use things like SimilarWeb and others, right? Things that you can see that's public information and see how they're doing. Why are certain folks, that aren't even in your industry? I look at a lot of B2C companies and B2B companies. What are they doing? There's a bunch of lists out there, like the most innovative use of X, Y, and Z that other companies are doing. Look at those case studies. Why did they work? It may not be directly applicable to you, but it can be. So if you have what's working, double down there, right? We're getting into probably global recession now. Look at that. But then also think about, where can I do some A/B testing? What are some 1 or 2 things that I can try to push the needle in an area I'm doing really well in? Where can I push? Where is somewhere where I'm not doing well? Who else has experienced that? And what have they done? And what success do they have? And apply it. And that's something we have to constantly think about. But just don't innovate to innovate, right? Because if everything's working really well, then you have the opportunity and space to try something new. But do a few things and do them really, really well versus trying to boil the ocean. I said that today in our QBR too, so I'll share that.
That's great. So I always like to add a human aspect to these. And so one of my last questions for you is, we've been in this global pandemic for 2+ years. This is probably the first time I've been to a major conference like this in so long. It's so surreal and amazing, and I'm loving the energy in this room even before lunch. How do you look at your team during this time, and how have you adapted your leadership style as a result?
I think, where I came from at SAP, we always lead with empathy, and collaboration is key. And that's one of the things I really like about the culture at Tipalti. And there's, all the leaders are pretty down to earth, very transparent. I think people really appreciate transparency, especially now. But I also think it's, people are everyone is exhausted right now. There is this level of exhaustion and a little bit of hopelessness. So, everyone has been very understanding, and we want to be, we were empathetic to everybody. But also, it's a time, things have opened up. Things are still happening. To really offer reconnection and to connect with people. We just had our first real managers meeting a couple weeks ago, and it was really great to get everybody together globally. The team got a lot of energy out of it, and that energy really transcended down across their teams. So think about the people who are remote and will continue to be remote, and how do you bring them in? Because team culture really matters. We can't build and be successful if we have teams that feel languished or exhausted. So something that we're doing is bringing in mindfulness training and mindful meditation so that people have a place to decompress, right? Because a lot of work and life is blended now. So that's something that we really, it's really important to me. And then creating a little bit of fun at work too. So it's not just, you're to the grind, right? So reconnection is a big theme for me, both at work, but also in personal, right? Reconnecting with people like Rachel and meeting new people and expanding, right? That's really important. And I think that's been missing for a while. And I think that's important to bring down to your teams too, because people are still going to be remote and people are feeling exhausted. So think about that as you're speaking to your teams. I think it's really important to lead with empathy and create collaboration, and you will have productive teams, but you also need to bring that in, don't forget about that.
Before I open it up to questions, is there anything I missed, or is there something you'd like to share about what keeps you up at night these days?
I think team culture and how we keep everybody connected, and I think there is this level of exhaustion. That was one of the things that we really dove into. But then I also think the other thing is, are we providing, I have this thing about, connected customer journey, and are we doing the right things? Are we growing the team in the right way? And are we connecting across, through with sales and with everyone else, right? So that, again, is that connected theme, but down to our customers, because people are also feeling exhausted. So you need to think about that too before you bombard them with a lot of things. Like I said, if you do some things, do it really, really well, but think about the quality versus the quantity.
That's amazing. Thank you.
You're amazing.
Well, you're more amazing. I always learn
I'll
something.
give you $10 later, I promise.
Okay, sounds good. I'd love to open it up to questions. Or is everyone ready for lunch?
Everyone wants lunch.
Oh, I have one.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I love everything you're saying about leading with empathy and doing fewer things and doing them well. And I think, so I'm in data analytics and I work with brands all the time. And one really pervasive trend over the years, and it's gotten worse with like programmatic and the influx of data, is balancing building your brand and building the connection with your audience, and then delivering results, right? Direct response results. And oftentimes you get so focused on, and as a marketer, you have to, right? You're judged on that. Your company is judged on that. Wall Street's judging you on that. So, or your investors or whatever the case may be. So like, Tipalti, like is that a balance you have to strike? Or do you have like the room you need to be able to build the brand without having these like short-term revenue goals that you have to hit?
We're in a very high growth business, so it is, we're building, and so it is about revenue, but if you are, does it happen without water? I'm fine. So it's, as you're building the revenue, you need to show up and prove that these things are working, and then you get the space to really, thank you, I knew this was gonna happen.
It's just a really good question.
No, so we do think about revenue, but I think it's really important that you prove the value of things like PR and brand and the effect that it has on the business. Because brand awareness, comms, those are considered soft, but those can really inspire and really put a stake in the ground for your business. And so you do need to strike a balance, but you need to bring that to the executives as a value add. And if you're able, you need to show that value, and it's not always about the numbers. You can get customer quotes. You can get, things from prospects. This event was great because X, Y, and Z happened for me. And you can really share that with your executives and your leadership team and your investors, or with Wall Street. If you can make your execs understand that value, then you'll get the space. But you have to actually show the value outside of the revenue. And there is value outside of revenue. It's not all about numbers. I know we talked about that a lot, but my comfort zone is storytelling, not data, right? But
that's great.
Great, thank you. Any other questions?
Okay, well, I want to thank everyone so much. We hope that you came away with some new knowledge. I'm energized. I hope you are too. And I'll turn it back over to you, Sarah.
Thank you.
thanks, Rachel.
Thank you so much.